Hello, this is Teresa, co-host of the Earrings Off podcast. Here you will find many a conversation that empowers women and the men who celebrate them. Today, Lou, my co-host, and I talk about sleep. In this episode, we discuss how we feel when we don't get enough sleep and how it impacts us. We chose to title this one, If You Snooze, You Win. Because literally, you've hit the proverbial jackpot when you get enough sleep. Enough good sleep, I should add. Because over time, without it, you put yourself at risk for heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, depression, a compromised immunity, and on and on. I think you get the point. Good sleep is as important to your overall health as good nutrition and exercise are. So now, let's get into this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
All right, Teresa, how you doing today?
I'm sleepy.
Oh my goodness. Are you really?
Well, yeah. So it's been a week that I've been away from my home. I'm visiting with my mom.
Oh,
and
that's good time.
Yeah, and I have not been in my bed, of course, and it's just been really hard for me to get my usual 7.5 hours. Yeah. 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep that I need,
Yeah.
I need that. Like some people can operate off of 5 hours, but that's not me.
No. Well, I tell you what, I'm right there with you. I went to, I worked out the other day, and I tell you, I don't know if I maybe did too much too late, but I was hyper, and I just could not settle down when it was time to go to sleep. And I hate that because it just throws, I don't recover as well from sleepless nights as I did when I was younger. I was just like in a trance the rest of the day. I wasn't functioning well.
Right. And exercise you have to be careful about the timing of exercise because it will definitely hype you, and it can, you need a couple of hours, a few hours before getting ready for bed. Sleep deprivation is real. Multiple days of being sleep deprived actually impacts the way you think and the way you feel. I've even read that, and I feel that this is true because this is what happened to me this week, is that I eat more. I snack more, and I'm hungrier because,
Mm-hmm. Well, but I tell you, let me share a personal story about that. Years ago, I found out that a medication I was taking caused insomnia. And that wasn't a list of the side effects, but I had to do some digging and all of that, and eventually found out what was happening, why I suddenly started having problems sleeping. But before I found out, Teresa, during this period, it probably, I'm guessing maybe almost a 3 or 4 month period where I just wasn't sleeping well. What eventually led me to saying, okay, this is serious. I've got to go to the doctor. I've got to get at the root of this. I was at something, I don't know if I was in a meeting, but when you talked about sort of having brain fog and what it does to you. Okay, the point I was trying to make in this meeting, finding in this document, I could not find it. When I finally did find it, I wasn't able to process it like I normally would as quickly. I was struggling through the meeting, trying to keep up. But the telltale sign for me, my hands were just shaking.
Wow.
Trying to turn the pages of this document, visibly, my hands were shaking as I was, and I thought, oh, Lou, this is serious. Because if I'm seeing this, no telling what it's doing to me internally. I've got to get to the doctor. And I'm so glad I did because, like you said, sleep deprivation is real. Had I been trying, I was driving during this period. I was
Mm-hmm.
still trying to function. And I can only imagine, well, the research shows your reflexes are off. You're at greater risk for having an accident. You mentioned that, it's sort of because you're sleeping, it leads you to maybe make some poor decisions in your nutrition because
Mm-hmm.
you're just trying to survive, you know?
Right. Yeah. And that's what keeps me awake. The snacking gives me the energy that I think I need. But when I sleep well, I don't do that.
Yeah. Well,
I don't, I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. I choose to eat bad when I've slept well.
yeah, right, Teresa. But you know what? The thing is, for me though, it starts a vicious cycle because I'm
Oh
sleepy,
yeah.
and then that
Mm-hmm.
makes me get some coffee, which because I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
function, and then I'm not used to having caffeine in my
Mm-hmm.
body like that, so I don't sleep well the next
Mm-hmm.
night. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
compounding this sleep
Mm-hmm.
deprivation, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
It is
yeah,
hard.
yeah. So
It is hard. It's very important because we heal when we sleep,
wow,
and
yeah,
so if you're not getting a good night rest and you're dealing with anything, even stress,
yeah,
you're not recovering during your
wow,
rest when you really should. And as of late, I've been wearing my Fitbit because I wasn't one reason I wear my Fitbit when I walk just because I want to
mm,
know how many steps I'm getting in and all of that. But I've been wearing it when I sleep, which I don't tend to do because I know I'm not sleeping. And one night I actually recorded 5 hours of sleep.
mm-hmm.
And during those 5 hours, I was laying down for 5 hours, but one full hour I was awake. Like the
Wow,
Fitbit registered that either I was tossing and turning or something during that period of time. It thought that I was awake. And
wow,
so honestly, I only got 4 hours of sleep in that 5 hours. And I paid for it
yeah,
dearly the next day because though I'm away from my home, I'm still working.
right.
So it was really hard for me to focus in meetings that day and have conversations about whatever the subject matter was at the time. I struggled the entire day that day.
Well, and you know what? And see, I think part of my issues, I really usually sleep very well. But when I get off, I think sometimes it's because of a bad habit I started when I worked. And this was intentional, and I know it was not smart of me to do it, but it's what I did. Because my days were hectic and I was involved in so many conversations and people talking during the day, and for me, I need quiet. I
Mm-hmm.
need to that's the way I refuel myself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely no conversation and just silence. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get that during the waking hours. So I started intentionally waking up in the middle of the night and getting up so I could have some quiet time.
Quiet time. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I know it was not a smart thing to do, but
Mm-hmm.
that was the only time I could have some peace. And
Mm-hmm.
I would get up in the middle of the night, don't turn on the TV, just get a book and just be quiet. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe to this day that bad habit I developed for my very survival, sometimes it comes back and I
Mm-hmm.
wake up. But for the most part, I sleep pretty well. But when you say wear your Fitbit to bed, I won't ever do that because Teresa, I'm a big old scaredy cat. I don't want to know if I'm not sleeping.
Well, let me tell you something.
I don't
That's
want
some
the
good
bad
info.
news.
Well, no, Lou, I think it's good news, and I think it's good because it's a tool, and it will tell you to the best of its ability.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a digital device
yeah,
about your sleep patterns, and I think it's important to know because it's very important for us to have X amount of REM
yeah,
sleep and deep
yeah.
sleep. I don't
Right.
know what those numbers are, so I'm not going to
Yeah,
even attempt to spout
yeah,
them off.
yeah.
But with that Fitbit, it also gives you a score. based on how well you slept.
Oh, I didn't
So,
know that.
right. So give it a try. Just wear it
Okay,
one night
I might do that.
and it'll let you know whether or not you're asleep. And then just notice how you're feeling during the day. Like if you were to get a poor score, but if you get a great score, you should have a wonderful day. Like
Well, but that's what I was about to say because I can tell when I'm well rested. When I
mm-hmm.
am well rested, I'm telling you, the sun looks brighter. I wake
Yeah.
up, it is like I
Yeah.
already know
Yeah.
it's gonna be an amazing day because
Yeah.
my body has what it needs to
Mm-hmm.
function. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's truly important. I mean, to get a good night's rest for a whole lot of reasons.
yeah,
Mainly stress, and this month being mental health, mental wellness. We're going to talk about that in a in
yeah.
a in a future podcast. But if you don't recover from a stressful day with a good night's rest, then it just compounds.
Well, and you know what, Teresa, because we talked recently about all of so many of the police shootings and how it's impacted us. And folks, let me tell you, I know we can't bury our heads in the sand. We have to keep up with what's going on. It's very important that we stay engaged and that we challenge what's going on, particularly to us and in our community for our own mental health and well-being, for our ability to sleep and get some rest so that we can refuel to fight another day. Sometimes you do. You have to maybe not watch that video, maybe pull back from the news, take a break, and just try to be mindful of how much of that you are letting seep into your being.
Mm-hmm.
Are you then becoming unbalanced so that you can't function because you put too much in? We've got to be very mindful because for us to be part of the solution, we've got to be here.
We got to be
Teresa-
well.
When Teresa referenced stress earlier and what not sleeping does to that, um, we've got to we've got to be able to rest, refuel, so that, like I said, so that we can function. So that's our talk today about sleep. And Teresa and I are wishing you peaceful nights, that you have a chance for your body to recover as you rest. That's it for us today here at Earrings Off.
Take good care.